I watched Voxer's video yesterday about a video on Onision's channel. I'm guessing this is his vlog channel or something. And I forget what the title was, but he was pissed off. He was very I can't think of a good word for it. But I did see a video by Onision only a few days ago. And in this one, he was whining about his ex-wife taking his money, which I watched a video, I don't know, maybe a year ago on the same subject. So I don't know why he's still going on about that. But I watched his latest video, the one he linked in the description, and it was a video about evolution, or at least for the majority of the video. And I watched it, and I didn't feel the rage Voxer did, but it had so much stupid in it that I had to pause it a few times and minimize my my screen. Just look at his face and see if he's actually serious about what he's saying. And I can't tell if he is, but if he is, I'm gonna pretend he is, and I'm gonna I want to go through it and kind of give my responses to what he's saying, because some of it just seems really weird, to put it quite frankly. So let's go.
Hey guys, there's a thing about humanity that I don't appreciate, and that is us thinking that we know everything, or thinking that we can define everything as if it's complete fact based on the little ability we have scientifically. It's just ridiculous. I think it's very, very silly that we human beings get in large groups and stroke each other's egos saying, oh, this is fact based on our modern technology, and oh, this is fact based on what we've learned so far. And
I want to stop him right there. There is a difference between making judgments on insufficient data and making judgments on sufficient data. For instance, is it possible gravity is wrong? Is it possible, there's some other kind of, force pushing down on things? Sure it is. Is it likely? No. Why? Because we have the data and we have the tools to determine that. And to say that what we know about gravity, is up for debate on the grounds that we could have better information gathering devices in the future, that's totally outlandish, because we have the tools now. We know our tools are reliable. We know that our data is reliable, and we know what our data insinuates on reality. And we don't need to to pretend like our stuff does what it really does, because we know it does what it does. We know that our tools are reliable means of gathering information, and we know what this information does to reality, and then we can judge that data and put it into words. And so what you're saying doesn't make sense.
This is fact, and there's nothing more factual than what we've discovered. Like, it's just ridiculous, because we're doing the same thing that we did.
Well, actually, science doesn't do that. Science doesn't say this is fact, and there's no way to change it. Science just determines the most probable and best explanation for our current information.
1,000 years ago, the world is flat and it's square or whatever, and this is based on our current science, and this is absolute fact. This is just the way it is.
I'm pretty sure they didn't determine the Earth was flat back in the day scientifically. I'm pretty sure they determined that because they didn't know that it could be round. If you didn't understand that, if you look at the horizon, you see the curve. If you didn't get that, why wouldn't you think it was flat? Why wouldn't you think that if you kept walking, you would find an edge eventually? That doesn't seem as weird as it would if someone said that today, because they didn't have the tools. Like I said earlier, they didn't have the tools to determine that. Eventually they did figure it out, but how should they have known that Earth is a sphere? They didn't, so they guessed. And that's kind of as simple as it gets.
It's like, guys, Think of us back then and how sure we were of ourselves, right? We were like really, really sure. We were like, oh, the gods, and oh, the angels, and oh, the whatevers, hell.
That's how we still are.
And so forth, and Hades. And then, more and more technology comes along, and we start to go, oh, maybe that's not necessarily true. And now we're doing the same thing where we have technology, and we think that this is the answer. But have you ever considered that maybe our reality isn't even really our reality? We just have...
Wait a second. Are you comparing the, for example, I'm going to use the Greeks. Are you comparing the Greeks thinking that lightning was a result of Zeus to be the same thing as humans thinking gravity is the result of forces of mass and stuff like that? If you really are saying that, you should, I don't know, get away from the computer for a while and rethink your everything. My head hurts.
Haven't developed the technology to realize that nothing is necessarily real. We thought the world was square all that time ago, or we thought it was flat all that time ago, and we found out it was round. Because
I hope you're not the kind of person that's going to start suggesting that we are just in a in a vat of liquid in the whole mad scientist scheme, and that we're not actually real. Because I really hope you're not going to say that.
Of our advanced technology. So what's to say that we aren't going to discover more technology that's going to make reality completely redefined yet again? Have you guys ever wondered about that?
Well, if that were to happen, then that would mean that all the data we have now has been wrong. And if you want to say that, what you should work on, instead of theory crafting about what could happen, about finding new information that would totally contradict everything we've already had. If you're gonna say that, give me a reason why we should think that it's possible that all the information we have is wrong. Because that's like saying, well, we know Earth is a sphere right now, but one day we may find out it's a cube. So you've got to be careful about what you think, because it could be wrong.
We have this present egocentric bullshit going on all the time.
No, we don't. We have science.
We're like, oh, now we know everything. Oh, now we have enough technology.
Now we know some things.
To define the universe. I think it's ridiculous. And this is the part where the whole conversation gets stupid to a lot of you, because I'm going to dive into evolution.
It's already gotten stupid to me, but I'll let you continue.
And I do not know much about evolution, but
that's probably pretty accurate.
Do know that these things do not add up without further explanation, and I do not have further explanation, so bear with me.
Wait a second. So you just said you don't know much about evolution, but what you do know is that evolution does not add up. If you don't know much about it, how do you know it doesn't work? I'm not seeing it here.
Okay. Evolution, right? It's a process that takes millions of years. We were once little frogs, little amphibious creatures, and then we eventually, came on land, and then a mutation occurred, and we changed, and then a mutation occurred, and we changed again, and we changed again, and we changed again, and it occurred over a million.
Well, I guess that's kind of an abridged format. We didn't, at one point we were seedling, but we didn't, hop on land and then evolve lungs. It didn't work like that. It's not like Pokemon where, humans, whatever we were in the past, are level 15 evolving into reptiles. Congratulations.
Millions of years conveniently, so, we can't, really track things as accurately as we would like to. Like if it was happening over a process of thousands of years, we would see little hybrids of shit walking around everywhere. Little half-frog / duck /
or a crocoduck. That'd be pretty cool, huh?
Octopuses, whatever. But that's just not how it happens, because conveniently everything took millions of years, so there's no way we could really, base every creature,
it's so suspiciously convenient that science actually takes a logical amount of time to do what it's doing. I mean, wouldn't it be just, it would just make so much sense, if humans could, friggin' fix their spine in one generation, we have bad backs. Let's just fix those, let's take care of that in 20 years, it'd be cool. Let's Let's have gills again. You know, that's handy. Let's get that in 2 generations. That's a great idea. That makes sense.
Look at it as if, you know, this is the transitional period that it's in. You know, it's just like
Everything is transitional.
everything is at its maximum right now, except monkeys. What the fuck is with monkeys, okay? You have bears where you have earlier fossils or whatever versions of those bears, hypothetically, or earlier versions of these fish or these dogs and these dinosaurs and so forth, the evolutionary process there as well. But how do we know that's even part of the evolutionary process?
Because we can track these back, and the people who are trained in studying these kind of things are the ones who determine that. Not little emo guys on YouTube who whine about their ex-wives.
You know? Like, my question is like, look at the brown bear and look at the black bear. Okay? If the black bear were dead, long, long dead, and we found a fossil of it, we would probably say, oh, this is an earlier version of the brown bear.
If the only difference between a black bear and a brown bear was the color of their fur, we wouldn't have a brown bear and a black bear.
This is the earlier evolutionary process of the brown bear. Really? This is just what's weird to me, okay? We look at things and we fill in the blanks as if it's fact. Again, we're so fucking egotistical.
Not really. It's not like we're looking at a fossil and be like, well, this looks kind of like a shark. Therefore, I'll stick it in the shark's evolutionary chain. It's not that way. We can see specific bones. We can, you know, we can tell a lot about what was the animal by, you know, the skeletons we find. And even without that, we do get, I'm not sure about this one, but I'm pretty sure we do get DNA of, or any kind of genetic material on certain kind of things, and we can connect the dots on them. And you can find genes that you can trace back and stuff like that. But, you know, even with the fossil record, you can, you know, you can find, you know, definitive connection between 2 different animals, especially if they're from the same chain closely, because of their structure.
Okay? Like monkeys, they exist, right? We say that they're the earliest version of ourselves.
No, we don't.
Why? I don't know.
I don't know why. I've never said that before.
It doesn't make sense to me, and the reason it doesn't make sense
It shouldn't make sense to you.
to me is because, yeah, we have all these other fossils around that looks like earlier versions of human beings, right? Problem. Brown bear, black bear, okay? Just because it's smaller,
Brown bears aren't the same as black bears.
it's less capable per se, just because it's not as aggressive or whatever, doesn't mean it's like a lesser form of the brown bear.
No, it means they're different forms.
Is it not just a totally different type of bear?
Uh-huh.
Just like these old fossils of earlier human beings could just
Uh-huh.
be different versions of humans?
Uh-huh.
And not necessarily our earlier evolutionary chain or whatever?
Uh-huh.
You know, and fuck people. Okay, first of all, I just want to say something. A lot of the earlier versions of us, according to scientists, have wider noses. You know,
Yes.
they have larger lips. They have different features that African Americans have. Don't turn it off yet. Bear with me. But why is that to suggest that they, just because you have a wider nose or larger lips or whatever, Angelina Jolie would be very primitive if that's the case. But just because you have these things, or the larger brow, in my case, I have a larger brow, it sticks out a little bit. Does that mean I'm a earlier version of you guys?
I don't doubt that.
No, it doesn't. So why are we implying that, you know, African Americans, or just Africans, they don't have to be African Americans, Africans who are black, because there's white Africans too. Africans who are black, black people are everywhere, okay? So black people, okay, let's just get through that, black people. Why are we saying that black people have certain traits that our earlier ancestors have?
Because they do.
You know, that makes them less modern, you know?
It's hard to say less modern, because we're at a point where the line is so long that, you know, to say less modern, that's not really saying that much.
Does that make them more primitive? That's fucking racist, right?
Well, no, No, they're not more primitive because they have been around, as long as we've been around. It's not like, once humans started in Africa, they migrated north. It's not like the Africans just stopped evolving completely. They're still evolving. They're still adapting to things. So it's not as if, they're, early humans. No, they're modern humans with their own adaptations that are suited for Africa. It's not like they're going to get white skin because people in Europe have white skin. That's not going to happen. Why not? Because white skin is not their best skin type for Africa. That wouldn't make sense. A person with black skin would be the better suited person in Africa. So they're not inferior. They have different adaptations, different microevolutions.
Science is kind of racist in that sense.
No, it's not.
Where they say, the wider nose and the earlier, just take a look at the photos, okay? And you'll notice that the earlier versions, they have more black characteristics, which is fucking stupid, okay?
Well, it would make sense if they share a lot of things with early humans because the early humans were in Africa. So you would imagine that the adaptations that they got in Africa, the good ones would stay. So it makes a little bit of sense that, a wider nose would help. I don't know, maybe help get more air in while they're running. I don't know. But maybe, it's possible that the adaptations they got were good. And once we went out of Africa, those adaptations weren't as needed as they are now. Ugh.
It's part of evolution that pisses me off. It's like, why do they characterize it to be racist?
They don't.
Okay, so let's get past that. And I know so many people are facepalming right now. I don't...
Yes, I am.
Don't give a shit, okay? If you don't want to hear what I have to say, go away.
Then why do you post videos?
Alright, so, why are there so many different races, or why did we all start out as so many different races on different continents and different...
We didn't.
And countries and so forth, different parts of land, which there's no established countries at.
Wait, are you trying to say that humans individually and separately appeared on different... Like, are you saying that humans appeared in Africa and then they appeared on America or wherever without any kind of connection? 'Cause I kind of hope not.
Why is it our races just happen to grow up in different areas of the planet simultaneously, magically, as did...
I'm still not following your line of thought from the beginning. If you're trying to imply that all humans started out where they currently are right now, separately from each other, then you're wrong. It's not like humans just evolved, from other species in America, and then and then a completely different chain of evolution. They showed up in Africa. That didn't happen. They showed up in Africa, then they spread out. So you should probably work on that a little bit.
These different races. What the fuck happened there? That's my question. Because it's like, if we were growing in one part, because of a mutation, we're growing in another part because of a mutation, then wouldn't that mean that we're all going to be different levels of evolution? Because what's to say these mutations are happening simultaneously?
Well, I think what we were trying to say is that I don't think you meant what I said earlier, in that everything evolved separately initially. I think what you're trying to say is once humans left Africa and went to these different places, and then they evolved separately from each other. I think that's what you're trying to say. And in that case, yes, no, they're not different levels of evolution, because evolution is not a constant improvement. It's not guided. So there's no better form of human than the other. The humans that we have today are suited for where they live. You can't say that a European human is more evolved than an African human. No, they're evolved differently than an African human. There's a difference.
Why? Why can't they happen hundreds of thousands of years apart? Why isn't there a half human walking around? A half human, half frog?
Because it wouldn't live. And that's not how evolution works.
And the reason I ask this is because it's like we have monkeys, which according to scientists are the earlier versions of ourselves. What
No, they're not.
the fuck happened to everyone in between?
We have fossils.
And you can use your scientific jargon and so forth to explain everything, but the problem is that sometimes there doesn't have to be an explanation,
I kind of see what you're saying, but you're saying it kind of wrong. It's wrong that there shouldn't be an explanation, but I think what you should have said was it's not wrong to not know yet. I think that's what you're trying to imply. But it's not as if, monkeys have no fossil record. They do. And monkeys aren't our ancestors. They come from a common ancestor. So a lot of their fossils are our fossils. A lot of their fossils, are traced back to the same line as ours. Maybe you're trying to think of the one from where we branched off and where they're at now. That small line there. Maybe you're trying to think of that one. In that case, we do have fossils of those, I'm sure. There's no reason we wouldn't.
It's as I said, we do not fully understand the universe yet, and that is okay. Okay? Who knows if the universe actually exists? Who knows if
That's totally okay if you don't know everything, but that doesn't mean you should believe stupid things.
my hands exist in front of my face? I just feel like it's really stupid that we're trying to fill in all these blanks, and I'm sure there's so many answers to the things I'm saying, but I'm also sure that there's no answers for a lot of the other things I'm saying.
No, there's answers for basically everything you're saying.
So, anyway, why do people look so very similar, and yet we're all established on different continents or whatever?
Because we are the same species who micro-evolved based on where they're at.
And you can say that we all started in Africa, which again is
We did. And it's not racist. Don't even say it. It's not racist.
racist. It's racist because, okay, so conveniently we all started in Africa, and you also draw things to look like black people as our earlier versions, and therefore you're insinuating yet again that black people are primitive versions of everyone else.
No, we're not. Again, I'll say it one more time. The modern Africans look similar to primitive humans because the primitive humans were adapted for African life, just like modern Africans. If modern Africans looked European, there would be a problem.
Fucking racist. Okay.
Not racist.
Okay, and why did evolution say, if everyone started in Africa, why did evolution say, oh, Japanese people are going to be naturally a couple inches shorter than everybody else?
When did evolution say that people in Japan are shorter than everybody else? Maybe what you're trying to say is Japanese people evolved shorter than other people, in which case, why is there a question as to why? Why does there need to be an answer to that? It happened. Maybe they didn't need the height. Maybe they, I don't know. They just, obviously the height isn't a big survival factor to the Japanese.
And why did we start out larger? Because African people, black people, are normally taller than
Because that's how they evolved.
everyone else. How is that evolution?
Because they evolved.
That black people are taller. And how did our penises shrink as part of evolution? That's what I want to know.
Well, I don't know about yours, but mine's doing fine.
Okay, if I used to be, in Africa, how come my penis got smaller? This shit does not make
That's probably a question for your doctor.
sense, okay? It does not make sense. Here is a theory that I have. This is the theory.
I'm sure it's backed up by scientific evidence, but continue.
I have a theory that there is some kind of intelligent being out there who's fucking with us all.
There it is. There's the mad scientist. Called it.
Okay? There's some shit going on. Earth might be a fucking joke, guys.
It could be.
There's an episode of South Park where they're like, Planet Earth! We took a bunch of different species and placed them on Earth, and now they're a worldwide comedy or reality show. Maybe that is literally the truth.
It is totally possible.
You know, maybe this is all just one big fucking joke. I feel like if there is a God, he doesn't give a shit
If there's a God, he probably doesn't give a shit. That's true.
about us. That, or he finished the project that he started, or she, and moved on. You know, like they went off to, you know, one of the other billion planets in the universe. God, we're so fucking self-centered. Oh, God loves me. I'm so important. Have you seen how small this fucking planet is?
Here's where I agree with you.
God probably barely gives a shit about the entire planet, let alone your insignificant ass and my insignificant ass. You ever think about that? Like, guys, religious folk, please go look at a fucking solar system map or whatever, and then look at a universe map, if those exist. Just look through a fucking telescope, and see how tiny we are. Why, if God cares so much about us, why did he create the rest of the fucking universe? Did you ever ask yourselves that? What, if everything is about us, heaven and hell and all that shit, what the fuck is the rest of the universe doing there?
I agree with him, but he looks and talks in such a stupid way. I feel like I should be disagreeing with him by the way he's talking.
Oh! So to say that, you know, aliens came and dropped us off here on different parts of I mean, I'm not saying evolution isn't real. Okay, I believe that
it is real.
Evolution does exist, but I don't believe that it exists necessarily as much on this planet. Okay, because
How does it not exist as much? It either exists, well, not exists, it's not a thing. Either it happens or it doesn't happen. Which one do you believe?
we have different versions of ourselves, but again, I ask you, who is to say for certain that is indeed an earlier version of ourselves and not just a different version of ourselves that's not necessarily earlier?
Well, if you have that question, ask a biologist. Ask someone who's qualified in that field to give you an answer. Okay? Don't ask that on YouTube. That's not where you find the answer on that. Because all you're going to get are unintelligent comments in your, well, actually, you have those disabled, but if you hadn't been able, that's what you would get. You'd get unintelligent comments back.
Okay? And that's just the weird thing. I'm just wondering, like, you know, why did everything evolve at exactly the same rate?
How do you know that?
You know, why aren't there more mutations going on?
How do you know there aren't?
And where the fuck are all the in-betweens?
How do you know there aren't in-betweens?
You know, half bears, half chickens, whatever.
Read a book.
I'm kind of joking. Actually, a lot of this is joking. But I'm just trying to fire off a few things in your brain, make you think a little bit, you know.
You're not making me think. I'm not thinking of anything I haven't already thought of. You're making me realize how much faith I have in humanity. And it's not very much.
The Matrix has you, and so forth. So anyway, these are my thoughts. I honestly believe that, you know, God doesn't give a shit, or if he does give a shit, it's mostly just about the planet, and we're just.
Well, do you believe in one or not? Because you put in initially the conditional, you know, if God exists, then, you know, X, Y, Z, and now you're saying God doesn't care about this. So, you know, which one is it?
You know, visitors here, people that were dropped off, or people that, I guess, evolved, maybe, possibly, if there's some explanation for the lack in there being any in-between. What the fuck is with monkeys? Like, I don't get it, man. Can you imagine if a gorilla evolved into a human? Can you imagine that shit?
That's not gonna happen.
Like, seriously? It would be fucking terrifying. We're talking like 10 feet tall people.
It'd be pretty cool, though. Can't deny that.
We're just walking around going, I'm going to enslave all you motherfuckers because you're all tiny. And I'm huge, and that's just going to be how it is. Anyway.
Well, if they wanted to do that, by the time they got to an intelligence at which they could pull a feat like that off, we would also be at a higher intelligence, and we would also know how to deal with something like that. So that's not really bound to happen.
So, yeah. Hopefully this inspires some thoughts, and if you think I'm the world's biggest idiot, I don't give a fuck. I'm thinking, and that's doing much better than your mom. So, thanks, guys.
You know, it's good that you think, and use bad jokes, but it's good that you think, but when you have questions about things that you don't have the knowledge to answer, what you should not do is answer them yourself. You shouldn't do that. You should find the resources, find the people who do know the stuff, and ask them. If you have a question about evolution and you don't know about evolution, don't try and guess and theorycraft about evolution. No. You know, even there's great videos online which totally go over them. Find some lectures. I'm sure if you want to, I can give you a whole list of P.Z. Myers lectures. You can find all the stuff online. It's all there for you. You know, there's no reason to act so ignorant when the information is right there. So, you know, just go out and learn instead of just making up your own shit. That's not how it works.